Good evening and welcome to this week's live chat on Friday night. Tonight I thought we'll talk soul. Big one, huh? But before we do, just a quick check-in. How are you all doing? On this Friday night in the UK, it feels like it's been hot and sunny for a couple of weeks and dry for a very long time weather-wise. So I'm just wondering how everyone is. Do put a comment in the chat to say hello, and also just to let me know how you're doing. If you want me to do that thing where I look you in the eye and ask you if you're okay, I will do that, and we can just pause for a moment and just take a breath. Just check in with yourself. Take a breath. Slow down. It's okay to notice whatever emotions you're feeling. It's okay to notice. It's okay to feel them. Just take a breath. And because our emotions are part of ourselves, then soul and emotions and our bodies and our spirits are all very much more connected. And I think Eckhart Tolle writes, there is no transcendence out with the body, it is through the body and through ourselves. And so just noticing our emotions and ourselves and our feelings is important. So let's talk soul. Welcome to Friday Night Chat. Let's talk soul, because one of the things I said a few weeks ago is that we as men often don't care about things that we should care more about. And I wonder if we've given any attention to our soul, any attention to our spirit. Maybe in the pursuit of personality, in the pursuit of wealth, in the pursuit of career, in the pursuit of mind, in the pursuit of intelligence, our soul has got left behind. Maybe we've hidden our soul because we've been frightened. Maybe we've hidden our soul because we've been scared of letting that part of us out in the open. Maybe we didn't realise it was there. So, what does the soul mean to you? I've been asking this question on Facebook the last few days, wondering what people's responses are. But before I share some of those, I want to just share a little bit more about soul. But do put in the chat any comments relating to the soul and what you think the soul is, while I just have a quick drink. I grew up in the church. Well, not literally. I didn't grow up living in a church, but I grew up an evangelical Christian. And one of the common Bible verses, this is the Bible bit. I don't do this very often. So if I know that people have stopped watching after 4 minutes and 32, it's because I mentioned the Bible. But anyway, please bear with me. This was a Bible verse that I had heard a lot when I was growing up. And Jesus says this: what do you benefit if you gain the whole world but lose your own soul? Is anything worth more than your soul? And the soul was something that was sung about at church. The soul was something that was always talked about, but never in the sense of kind of understanding what the soul was. I cannot remember a single sermon that actually tried to say what the soul actually was. There was a difficulty enough in trying to say what the spirit was, but the soul, I cannot remember a time when that was talked about, apart from the sense that the soul was something that lived for eternity. The soul was something for the future. It wasn't for something for now. And it was almost as if it was kind of banked for something to kind of go, well, it's not for now, but it's for the future. And kind of it doesn't really matter about in the present. But I don't actually think that's what Jesus is talking about there. I think he's talking about something much more present and much more tangible in the present time. But I find it strange that in a religious context that has uses the word soul, it never felt like it understood what the soul was. And what was even stranger was that growing up in what was said to be an evangelical Christian home was utterly soulless. There was no spark. And the things that I would have thought were soulful, and you might consider soulful, were completely absent, like music and laughter and dance and love and depth and creativity even. And those are all the spaces. I wonder whether those are all the things that were just completely absent. Almost because soul was something put off for the future. Or maybe they carried no meaning in the present. And I just wonder what the effect of that is. And I wonder what that meant. Because soulless also meant abusive. And I don't want to talk about that too much tonight. But when we think about the soul, sometimes the opposite to that is the soullessness. We could look at a landscape and say it's just soulless and wonder, is it just because it's derelict or concrete? Or is that our mind kind of not seeing soul in it? That some kind of art is there, but we can't sense it. We haven't grasped it for ourselves. I wonder. So I find it fascinating that a religion uses the language of soul, but not ever understanding or ever even trying to communicate what the sense was the soul was. And if it was always something that was to be grasped for the future. It lived for eternity, or choices made in the present were about banking the guaranteed long-term eternity of the soul, because the body will die, but the soul would live forever. Isn't that quite strange? So, what is the soul? And why should we care about the soul, our own soul? A few comments on Facebook have people have shared what they've sensed the soul to be. The soul being the depth of our being. Our true selves. Our inner me, distinct from my inner spirit. Christelle, my wife, has put, soul is the entire universe within, what connects us to all living things. It's the divine in me, recognising the divine in you. It's our core self, our play, our joy, our magic and mystery. Gary Zukav writes, love is of the soul, fear is of the personality. And that might explain why an abusive house, where fear is dominant, it's about the personality. The personalities of fear and the personalities of the ego and the personalities that cause damage and pride. So, shall we ask a question? Have you ever really thought of your soul? About your soul? If I have a soul, what colour would it be? What shape is it? If you have a soul, what might it be saying to you? If you have a soul, what needs to be cleared away so you can listen to it? And then, what's the relationship between you and your soul? I've got to admit, in the last few weeks, my mind has been pretty busy. Things have got me upset and got me angry, as I shared last week. And I've recognised that there's been a bit of a rebuilding time and a bit of a resetting time, and that what I've noticed has been that in the quiet moments, that reset has felt quite deep. That what I've been reading about and what I've been reflecting on, yes, has been the things that have caused me to feel angry and to do something about that, but also given me the opportunity to dig deep into listening to my soul and my heart and my inner voice, and just take that time to listen and to reconnect. And I'm not saying that because I've got any great profound wisdom from my soul, but almost to realise again that that's who I am, and that's part of my whole being. So, what the relationship is between me and my soul, maybe the first step is to recognise that it actually exists. The first step in being able to stop and in the silence, learn from the silence and feel the soul in the silence. What relationship do you have with your soul? What's got to get out of the way? What's taking the distractions? Do you recognise the voice of your soul, different from the voice of your inner critic or the voice of expectation? What does your soul say? Maybe the soul is about sensitivity. Maybe the soul is about openness. Maybe the soul is about vulnerability. Maybe the soul is about depth. One of the books I've read a few times in the last few weeks is this one, The Eden Project by James Hollis. And in it, a psychology book, but part of it about spirituality and soul. And he writes that 3 aspects of the soul are resonance, about depth. So the second test of our spirituality may be found in our encounter with depth. Whatever pulls us deeper into life, even painfully so, opens us to the great life that courses beneath history and below the surface of everyday existence. Soul is ephemeral, it is omnipresent and contagious with all experiences of the phenomenon. To be pulled into the depths through our encounter with the beloved, to encounter the depths within ourselves, to experience the awe of nature, is truly to have a religious experience. To glimpse the invisible world that animates the visible one is to experience the mystery that enlarges consciousness. And then he says the third principle is numinosity, saying when mystery winks at us, we realise that soul is not only in us, but also in the outer world. Of these three modalities, resonance, depth and numinosity, are the primary indices of the presence of the autonomous other we call the soul. We have been brought into life, equipped to be the carriers of soul, recipients of soul and builders of soul. If there is another world, it is this one. Why are we here? In a psychology book, Why Are We Here? It says to be the carriers of soul, recipients of soul and builders of soul. We're not to be deniers of our soul, hiders of our soul, scared of our soul. We're not to be putting our soul off for another day or for another life. It is for here and for now. So may we start to pay attention to our soul, to care for it, to realise that it exists. And what will that do if understanding and listening to our own depth and our own consciousness, that's so part of us, what will that do? I'm reading a couple of Gary Zukav books. He writes The Seat of the Soul and Soul Stories. And I want to close with this, saying, communicating with your own soul gives you a glimpse of the most fulfilled, wise, compassionate and intelligent person that you might become. That is the person you would be if you used all the wisdom that you have available to you and all of the compassion that you have in your heart all of the time. It is you without any of the limitations of anger, fear, jealousy, doubt, sadness, vengeance, shame or resentment. It is what you would be if your life were filled with love and joy. This is your higher self, and that draws you to yourself. It is all you can become. It is where your life wants you to go. When you communicate with your soul, your higher self is calling you. And this from Hemin Summon. Do not force yourself on a spiritual path. Let its teachings gently open your heart and lead you. Like salt gradually dissolving in water, let the teachings dissolve in your heart. So let's talk soul. But more than that, let's not talk about soul. Let's listen to our soul. Let's care about our soul and be attentive to our soul. Thank you. Have a good weekend, friends. Look after yourselves. Thank you for watching. And this was James Ballantyne on Healing for Men. The world is a better place when we are too. Bye for now. See you next week.